Hi, I'm Oliver, and this is Deep Cuts, a channel dedicated to music for lovers of music. This has been quite an interesting roundup to write because initially I felt like February didn't really have any exciting releases particularly. It felt a little bit average in comparison to some of the months we had last year. But as I started getting through the month, I discovered a couple of real gems that I'm very excited to talk about today. There isn't actually a single record on the list this month that I vehemently disliked. Of course, there's criticisms to some stuff, as there would be any month, but in general, I've enjoyed every project that I've listened to, some more than others, but still. I'm hoping that the slight lack of high-profile releases in February will encourage you guys to listen to some of the records that I've found this month, records that you may not have listened to otherwise. Also, if you've checked out the description of the video already, you may have noticed that I've completely gotten rid of my rating system, which was okay, good, great, brilliant, amazing, crap, whatever, because I've found that all that people do is kind of assign a numerical rating to what the word means, which sort of invalidates the point of not doing numerical ratings in the first place. So what I've done now is I've decided I'm going to try and apply one adjective per record to describe my experience of it, because I feel like that fits more in line with the way that I'm reviewing records. So yeah, Car Seat Headrest, Twin Fantasy. So Will Toledo, he is the leader, the songwriter and music maker of the band Car Seat Headrest. I spoke about his 2016 record Teens of Denial back in 2016, and that was actually one of my favourite records of the year. It was a paranoid, neurotic depiction of existential turmoil and adolescent emotions, and that's all led by Will's droll yet very magnetic vocal presence and also the powerhouse instrumental backing. Really good album. Oddly enough, his follow-up to Teens of Denial is not new material, it's a reworking of a 2011 record called Twin Fantasy, which he originally released on Bandcamp. Not an album that I ever particularly enjoyed. It was a little bit too bedroom core with its production, I think, to do justice to the songwriting. And I think in general the songwriting lacked a finesse that Teens of Denial clearly showed. So now we have a polished version of Twin Fantasy that some people are saying is a better version of Will's songwriting than Teens of Denial. Do I agree? No, not really. I actually think there's a lot to admire about Twin Fantasy. I really do. There are moments of excellence littered throughout this record. There are moments here and there that seem to explode in your face. They're tumultuous moments that seem to capture that feeling of being an alien in your body, which is very much the adolescent experience, I think. I'm talking about the 6844 section at the end of Sober to Death, for example, where Toledo croons, "Don't worry, you and me won't be alone no more." I mean, that is a great moment. Or the central hook of Young Humans, or the piano vocal part towards the end of the 16-minute False Prophets, where Toledo's wondering what happened to you. These moments are very effective. As a project, it does not live up to those individual moments or its predecessor Teens of Denial. It doesn't for me anyway. I understand Toledo felt as if the songwriting hadn't been done justice on Twin Fantasy, on the original recording of Twin Fantasy, so he wanted to go back and really do that justice. I appreciate the point of that, but for me, stronger production or not, it's still a step back in songwriting quality. The incredibly poignant and deft songwriting on display of Teens of Denial is not here on Twin Fantasy, which leads me to wonder, why not just write some new material? A track like Body sounds weak and almost an afterthought compared to the very high points of the album, and even the title track, it feels weak and directionless after the actually very effective False Prophets. I feel like the album should really end on that track. I just find it a little frustrating. I wanted to see a progression of Toledo's songwriting, and I feel like what we're getting here is a step back in the wrong direction, really. Still lots of things to like about this release. Nonetheless, I do think it's got some really good moments, and if you loved Teens of Denial, then I think you will enjoy this record. Eastman, Red, White and Zero. Here comes one of my joint albums of the month, an absolute delight of a record. Anthony Hart is a producer and musician from East London who has an impressive back catalogue of electronic music which sort of straddles house, dark ambient and techno, but for this release under the moniker of Eastman, this is kind of a collective record. He's brought these MCs together to craft a grime record. Kind of a grime record anyway. It's full of filthy beats and ripping verses. This is it, people. First off, Red, White and Zero's production is top class. Hart has this brilliant ability to create these rounded instrumentals that have an airy yet paranoid edge. He sets them up and then he absolutely slices them down the middle with one of the most disgusting beats you have ever heard in your life. Quint's chair wouldn't break, his spine would. For example, the third track, Mission, sets up a synth line that sounds fairly familiar. You expect to get a pretty standard grime beat to come alongside that. Then the beat comes in and it's this off-kilter phrase that has these three splintering beats at the end of it it's just despicable in the best way. This is Heart's success, I think. It's taking the pleasures of grime and adding a new complex element to the sound. It's a slightly left field approach at a very specific style of music. A track like Safe is this restrained yet clattering menace, and you have the low-key delivery of DJ Eclipse, which really effectively merges with the production. Cruisin' is one of my favourite tracks here, and it absolutely has everything to do with the guest MC Darko Strife. He absolutely rips across this track. He has a clarity and a speed to his delivery, which is a brilliant combination. It's something I love to hear in grime music. I want to hear more of this guy, because I want lots of you to go and check this out. If you liked Vince Staples' Big Fish Theory, specifically if you liked the production of Vince Staples' Big Fish Theory, I think you should check this out, because it straddles similar stylistic lines, but this is nastier and dirtier and better as well. This is a really great record. I love it. One of my 2 records of the month. Absolutely. Please go and listen to it. We will be doing a listening party of this record as well on Tuesday. Come and listen to it and see what you think. MGMT, Little Dark Age. Who saw this one coming? Not me. At this point, MGMT, the Connecticut indie psychedelia pop duo from Connecticut, were being written off by a lot of people. You know, Oracular Spectacular, their debut release in 2008, it was pretty great. That's one of my formative records. I was about 16 years old when that came out, and I've got, you know, nostalgic connections to that record. Good album. I think the slightly baggier but no less engaging follow-up, Congratulations, was a really great record. And their self-titled third LP was really not very good. The very definition of a directionless, confused piece of work, I think. I had little to no interest in Little Dark Age when it was announced, because I just felt like Andrew and Ben's songwriting abilities at this point had been fairly exhausted, and yeah, we're on first name terms, okay? But it was wrong of me to do so, because in actual fact, Little Dark Age is pretty good. It's the earliest slice of summery goodness you're going to get in 2018, unless, you know, you're living in California, in which case, screw you, because I'm in dingy Britain right now. As far as their sound goes, this is unashamedly the kind of primary colours synth pop that embraces the 80s in its many hued features. You have snapping snares, rounded synths, and a production style that sounds kind of fuzzy. I think that it lacks the kind of sterile audio polish you might expect from an anachronistic synth record in 2018, but it's all the better for it. Title track Little Dark Age is a stomping digital disco funk track, and it's the kind of track that makes you want to sit down with these synth sounds and play with them yourself, because it just sounds so much fun. The glittering Me and Michael sounds like it was conceived on Miami Beach. You can almost hear the palm trees swaying and taste the skin cancer. As before, MGMT have retained their tongue-in-cheek approach to songwriting. It's a self-knowing wink-wink, nudge-nudge that stops an album like Little Dark Age from sounding like a piebald attempt to replicate the 80s sound. You know, like an artist like Comtrues, for example. You know, that slight sense of humour, that edge, really elevates this record. Their lyrics are at times hilarious and pitch black, and they contrast brilliantly with the synth sheen of the music. Opening track She Works Out Too Much satirically details the ending of a relationship due to vacuity. You have the track When You Die, and one of the verses ends with the line, "Baby, I'm ready to blow my lid off." One of my favourite tracks, One Thing Left to Try, has these surface level optimistic lyrics, but actually if you dig a little bit deeper, they seem to suggest a pull towards suicidal thoughts. It's dark and evocative stuff. Genuinely impressed with this record. Take a listen. Shinya Fukumori Trio for 2 Akis. Time for the album released in February, which provided me with a lot of solace during the completion of my very laborious dissertation. Shinya Fukumori is a jazz musical polymath. To be honest, he plays violin, guitar, piano, and also drums. Drums being the instrumental focus on this new album for 2 Akis, which is his debut album on the legendary ECM label. This album is a wonderfully intimate trio recording comprised of Fukumori on the kit, German pianist Walter Lang, and French tenor sax player Matthew Bordenave. If you want a good reason to listen to this record, it's a stripped back lullaby, start to finish, replete with these delicate performances, full of moments that swell your heart and relax your body. That's genuinely the experience that I had listening to this album every single time. Each time Fukumori taps against a tom or lightly brushes one of his dry cymbals, you get a real sense of the room. This space is constructed around you as you listen to it, and that space is then filled with gorgeous piano motifs and sensitive tenor melodies. The cover of famous Japanese song A San San is just lovely. Fukumori allows Lang and Bordenave to ground the track whilst he begins to create very gentle textures of bronze, plastic, and wood. Bourdonnais has a particularly fragile and lyrical approach to his performance, not just on this track but on the rest of the record. That approach really shines through. Lang's piano playing follows the same delicate approach as the sax and the drums, his fingers gliding across the keys effortlessly. Whilst a number of the tracks are covers, the originals that are interspersed prove the fact that Fukumori and the trio know how to adapt pieces in the same vein as the pieces they're composing, and that lullaby feeling is then delivered throughout the entire record so effectively. It's what makes this whole record feel like a comforting cuddle, quite honestly. And that lullaby is created by favouring textures over assertive moments. So take the track Spectacular, for example. It really highlights Fukumori's commandeering of his instrument, of the drum kit. You have ghosting of the snare, utilising the bell of the ride, allowing the cymbals to decay into the darkness alongside Lang's very dexterous two-handed piano parts. Lovely album. Put some headphones on, dim the lights, and close your eyes. Kero Bonito, TOTEP. KKB, the London-based electro-indie synth-pop thing, released their full-length LP Bonito Generation in 2016, a record that was quite widely loved. I didn't like it as much on a first listen. I've come around to it a little bit more now. It's quite a fun record. Their cavity-inducing sugary pop with elements of dance hall and J-pop influences as well. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be for everybody at all, but one thing you can't, if you don't like the style of music, one thing you cannot deny is that their identity. They have a real identity and an approach to their music and an aesthetic, and they stick to that, and they're very good at that. The most interesting thing about this new EP, TOTEP, to me is the suggestion of progression that KKB are going to be going through, moving on to the next phase of the project. In perfecting their formula, it appears as if the band are already prepared to deconstruct it, and that's why we get a much darker EP that is a bit more experimental than the stuff on Bonito Generation. There's moments on this EP, for example, there's a moment where they toy with dissonance on the track One True Path. It just colours the track a little bit. There's also a lo-fi approach to some of the backline recordings of a couple of these tracks. Seriously, on one of the tracks, you can hear the artifacts in the snare each time it's hit, and it just adds a bit of variation, a bit of experimentation to the sound they're going for. The central point to this EP, however, is the track Only Acting, and if any of this is an indication to their future sound, then I hope it's this track. It starts like a jumped up pop punk track before disintegrating into these guitar wails, screeches from vocalist Sarah Midori Perry, and at one point a complete breakdown of the track, and these things kind of remind me of a band like Sleigh Bells, for example. Well, you know, when Sleigh Bells were good anyway. Final track Cinema has this hazy digital funk sound to it, again making me wonder what the next step for KKB is going to be. The tracks here are interesting, and it just makes me excited to see what's coming next. Hieroglyphic Being, The Red Notes. Hieroglyphic Being is the moniker of Chicago-born Jamal Moss, a guy who went from being a gigolo for rich white women to the creator of complex, heady house music. I'd love to see his CV. On the site Boomcat, his biography reads an Afro-Cubist house prophet, which is an interesting, if slightly pretentious label. Also, I feel like it might be one of the best ways of describing his music, which does defy categorization in many ways. Jamal has called his style of music in the past synth expressionism. I think that's something you can hear in his back catalogue, but also in his new record, The Red Notes. And I think what he means by that is that most of the tracks are caged in that recognisable four-to-the-floor house music style, except there's a light, airy feeling to the synth sounds that allows your brain to wander as your body moves. There's like a sensitivity to the insistent interweaving synth lines that are applied in his songs. I actually like The Red Notes even more than previous record Discos of Imhotep, a record I listened to over and over again when I first found out about it. Both are a very unique foray into the world of Chicago house music, yet The Red Notes, the tapestries that Moss creates on that record, they're more exploratory, they're more detailed, they're more expressive. You can hear the tones of a treated Hammond organ, the tones of an expressive sax melody. The drum tracks feel deeper and more robust than ever before. The track Awake and Energized has this central piano performance which becomes slowly more digitized as the track goes on. Moss is shifting and moulding the timbre of the acoustic piano to turn it into the digital, and it's just an example of one of those little moments that shows the level of attention to detail that Moss has with this music that he's creating. There's so much to listen to on these tracks of this album, it would take forever to deconstruct it. Video Jazz is by far one of my favourite tracks on the album. It's got these knotty instrumental lines which, despite their apparent complexity at times, managed to portray something quite graceful. Herein lies the genius of Hieroglyphic being. He is able to deliver moments that will get you moving, undoubtedly, but also these tiny little nuggets of genius that will keep you coming back time and time again. In that way, it reminds me of the kind of complex music that Jilin creates with her different projects. It's that similar approach to music, and I am obsessed with it. This is a really, really good album. Anna von Hausswolff, Dead Magic. Yeah, I know this record technically came out in March the 2nd to be precise, but because I've taken a few more days to get this video out than normal, because I decided to give my laptop a tea bath, I thought I would include my thoughts on Anna's new record on this roundup instead. Anna von Hausswolff is an artist that I actually hadn't had the pleasure of experiencing until I went and saw Swans on their Glowing Man tour at the end of 2016, and she supported them, and her band absolutely blew me away. I think in some ways I might have actually enjoyed her performance even more than Swans, which might sound like blasphemy, but you know, whatever. In a similar way to Swans, she managed to command the atmosphere of that venue totally, which is no easy feat when you're the support act of a band, so you have people walking to and fro the audience getting more beers. The second I got home, I checked out their 2015 record The Miraculous and discovered that even on the recorded version of their sound, they managed to capture that raw, grandiose energy that they had live. Dead Magic is the Swedish songwriter's 4th record, and I can't help but feel that touring with Swans in some capacity has rubbed off on her songwriting process. I think that's quite clear to hear from the approach of Dead Magic. The 5 tracks that make up Dead Magic are resonant, sweeping epics that are led by Anna's compelling vocals and an earth-shaking organ. These are searching tracks that take their sweet time to build and establish a momentous atmosphere. 2 beasts of the record, which is opening track The Truth, the Glow, the Fall, and then the 3rd track Ugly and Vengeful. They're the big epics of this record. At times they skirt the edge of neoclassicism in their style, at other times embracing the sort of all-encompassing power of drone music. This is dark stuff. The mysterious vanishing of Elektra juxtaposes acoustic guitar chords and a bottomless drone that can't help but remind me of a record like Swans' The Seer, except this time you also have this compelling vocal performance from Anna, genuinely one of the most exciting performers I've heard in a while. The power that she harnesses on this track through her vocals, occasionally whooping maniacally, is beguiling. The Marble Eye is a track grounded by broken organ chords, and it really reminds me of that Philip Glass piece, Prut, Igo and Prophecies. It establishes the same sepulchral, melancholic tone. It's a triumphant instrumental piece, and the decision to omit vocals from this track just proves Anna's dedication and her craft in sequencing and creating this record. It just feels so right not to have vocals on this track. She could have sung on it, but she decided not to, and in that way it serves as almost a break in the record before that brilliant finale track. Again, just this whole album is constructed in an immensely satisfying way. This album is stunning. It's my joint album of the month alongside Eastman's record. Please go and check it out. Please go and support Anna. This is a really great record. Screaming Females, All at Once. Screaming Females, the New Jersey rock band, have released the only guitar album you really need in February. Sorry, Twin Fantasy. All at Once is a raucous record defined by the lacerating guitar work of Marissa Paternoster. The riffs here are twisting and frenetic. They go alongside her brilliantly assertive vocal presence, and also you have this focused back line consisting of King Mike on bass and Jarrett Doherty on drums. It's not too often that I come across a record that delivers both on a rawness but also on the litany of singable tracks. This kind of record reminds me of the first time I'd ever listened to Celebration Rock by Japan Droids. Every track delivers a singable hook, a riff that gets stuck in your head, a brilliant guitar solo. This album just delivered first time in every way for me. I was singing along on a second listen through, and I can't say that happens too often. The production makes All at Once feel so muscular and robust. The distorted bass, for example, on I'll Make You Sorry, it feels post-punky with its steady, insistent motif. The drum track on Soft Domination is rattling, the snare rim shots slice through the track, and it's all courtesy of guest drummer Brendan Canty from Fugazi. Paternoster's guitar solos on Birds in Space are predictable but beautifully performed. They're the kind of satisfying guitar solos that you have to pick your air guitar up and play along with. There's so many moments on this record that make me do that. It's so good. I think it's one of those records I'll be getting more and more out of the more and more I listen to it. I would thoroughly recommend it, as would I the majority of the records this month that I've talked about. Please go and have a listen. Right, and that was my February roundup. as I just said, every record this month has something that I would recommend you checking out. It feels like a musical appreciation episode more than anything, because I have nothing massively to criticize. I think the biggest criticism for me was Car Seat Headrest, just because I felt like I wanted to see something a bit more original. But you know, there's interesting things to be gleaned out of all of these records. But please go and check out Eastman's record and Anna von Hausswolff's record, because those two are the shining lights for me this month. They are so great. Thanks for watching. Videos might be a little bit more sporadic again over the next couple of weeks, just because of looming deadlines and things like that. I'm planning to get the Autechre video done really, really soon. I really want that to be my next video, but that depends on external deadlines and things like that. So thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.